Hi everybody, this is Piero Giorgio. I am today on Cape Sunion in Attica in Greece. Behind me is the temple of Poseidon, one of the great and powerful gods of the ancient Greek pantheon of mythological gods. Made much more sense than monotheistic gods, which were usually jealous, genocidal, brutal. Anyway, that's not what I want to talk to you about today. Yes, there are indeed more important things to talk about today. Well, as you figure out, I'm in Greece, here in Athens, on Syntagma Square. This is a square where behind me is the government building, the parliament. But of course, this is a square, as you can see behind, that is famous for revolutions, coup d'etat, and for sure, very, very often, left-wing usually, revolts of people and manifestations, which usually in today's world are useless. What I wanted to talk to you about is the status of Greece today. And to me, Greece is a dear country, perhaps because I have some guilt in my family. As I'm originally Italian, we kind of helped destroy this country in World War II. And my grandfather participated in the abortive and failed invasion of Italy, from Albania actually, which was Italian territory, into Greece. And they got their asses kicked by the Greek army, as he fondly was telling me when I was a kid. But more seriously, I like Greece because it's one of the cradles of European civilization and European philosophy and culture. You know, I joke about Zeus, Poseidon, and the other gods, which made a lot of sense in philosophical way. But this is because rational thought comes from Greece, and not only democracy, which has nothing to do with the democracy we know today in the Western world, which is a scam, but the real democracy came from citizen soldiers fighting to save their families and their cities against their enemies, and that meant something, and that means that whether you know the differences between people, which are natural, suddenly mean nothing when you are fighting, and when you have to potentially pay with your blood against your enemies to protect your families and city and way of life and philosophy. So the Greek of Plato, of Aristotle, and Socrates, and so many others, and of Sparta, is clearly the Greece that I like to, and it's not for nothing that I named all my kids after they all have Greek names. Anyways, what is the status of Greece today? Well, as you know, we have considerable economic pain here. And if you've read the news over the last 10 years, you've seen how difficult it is to have, first of all, accurate information of what's really happening here. And this is, for me, it's a laboratory test to see how a country that has way too much debt ends up in today's world, and what is happening in Greece will happen, and is already happening in Italy, and will happen in other countries, of course Spain as well, but will happen in France, in UK, and will happen in the United States sooner or later. All countries that have way too much debt will end up in the path that Greece has been into in the last 10 years. And first of all, let me remind you that you should check the news for yourself. You should really think for yourself with the data and the news that you find into accurate places, accurate websites, accurate sources of information. Because if you trust the large media to inform you about Greece, you will have at best sketchy information, and probably you will have just false information. They will tell you that Greek people are lazy, they will tell you that all of these half-truths, such as about corruption, about Greece has overspent and borrowed money to make this very nice actually infrastructure. It's a very modern country. However, these are half-truths, because the reality you have to see that there's been a lot of scams. The most known is the one with this large bank that has Goldman Sachs, the usual suspects, to push Greece into debt and then to play against it on the interest rates game and the rating game to make money against their customers, which they were advising, which was the Greek government. So yes, So of course the problem is in Greece now is if you look at the causes, you see that there's been debt for almost centuries since Greece started, and there are reasons for that debt. There are reasons in history. There are reasons in why this debt has started. However, you have to really look at the root cause. But once you have that information, one thing you have to consider is once a country deliberately is put into debt by its own elites, by its own politicians, and by foreign powers, including, of course, the financial world, you find yourself as a country in a difficult position. The first of all is that you have only two choices. You pay your debt or you don't pay your debt. And of course, to pay your debt, you need economic growth and you need to have a positive cash flow, which Greece doesn't have. Doesn't have because politicians doesn't want to, and of course because there is a habit that has been set into place where you are spending more than what you earn, whether you're a country or some other organizations. That can never work out. And until politicians are less corrupt and are not managed by foreign powers and foreign companies, that's not going to change. Second option is you don't pay. You send everybody to fuck off. Now this is the best option usually, as long as you are cash flow positive, because then no one will borrow you. You cannot borrow money anymore once you send all your creditors to fuck off. So if you stop borrowing money, you need to have enough cash flow to survive on your own, and you can't just make up money because people will not trust you. So as a government, this is of course a big challenge. Now let me be clear, this is not going to happen unless the people take power, and the people will not take power through democracy, of course not. So unless there is a bloody revolution and a lot of the elites killed, it's not going to happen, and I don't think it's going to happen. So what's going to happen is that Greece falls more and more. And remember, this is happening in Italy now, and it's happening in Spain, it's going to happen in France, and sooner or later in the UK and the United States, with of course a different scenario, because Greece is a small economic power, and it's not a big one like the United States, for example. So clearly, the problem is if you put into slavery of debt, well, what can the government do? Sell its assets to raise cash to pay part of the debt, which will never be enough, by the way, but at least that's the way for private interests to buy the assets of a country. And it's a rich country. Greece has fabulous assets. If only the islands, the harbors, the airports, the infrastructure, but also natural resources. There's a little bit of oil that has been found in the sea here, and gas, as well as, of course, ore and minerals in the mountains. So obviously all of this is going to be privatized. But that's not even per se a problem, but it's going to privatize to a very low cost. So they will really give away a lot of the assets because they need to raise cash to pay the debt, which will again never be enough, and also still keep the country in debt and slavery. Another thing that's going to happen is austerity measures, because the creditors, through political power, through the European Union, which let's remind that it is a bureaucracy at the service of the United States. Well, and of course of corporations, and you know the parent owners of the United States and of the European Union are international corporations and mostly banks. So what's going to happen if you have that constant push by the European Union for austerity measures, is that against new loans, the governments here in Greece, as they have done in the last 8 years, they will have to slash pensions, payments to people. Look, I don't like the big state, and I don't like this concept of welfare and all that. But people are used to that here, and you cannot slash them by 30, 40% overnight, because they can't live anymore. So it creates economic chaos, and actually creates a recession which does not help the government to raise cash to pay the debt. So you enter a vicious circle of inability to actually do nothing. And of course, the fat cats still get money. The rich people, the very rich people, never pay taxes anyway, and nowhere in the world. And therefore, you are into a situation here in Greece, and again, it's going to be the same elsewhere, where suddenly there is no way out. And the path is towards general slavery, slavery of the people, slavery of the state, and people work hard, but it's not going to help. So a lot of people move away. 1 million people have left Athens in the last 6 years to Australia, Canada, United States, South Africa, and so on, to find jobs. Another 1 million people, I hear, have left the big cities because there's no jobs and the cost of life is too high, to move into smaller cities or the islands, or to their parents' home or their grandparents' home. So there's a massive, inside the country, there's a massive exodus of people who are not able to make ends meet, and therefore have to go back to their parents, which is humiliating, but it's also possible, which is a positive side effect, because the family is still important here, and which is also something that the government plays on. They can cut and slash benefits because they know that people will turn to their families. Now, Greek people are very industrious people, and they're also very innovative, and actually they are not only hardworking, but they have bright ideas, and though I think that eventually the Greek people will rebound. But as a country, despite the beautiful infrastructure and the amazing potential of the country, of course, this economic collapse has happened here, and fortunately, Greece is a homogeneous country. There's very little foreigners. Most of them left because there's no jobs for them anyway. And there is really no violence. And this is fortunate because if something like what's happened in Greece, it's not if, it will happen. It's when it happens in the UK, it's going to be a bloodbath. When it happens in the United States, it's going to be civil war and a bloodbath. When it happens in France, it's going to be civil war and a bloodbath also. So Mediterranean countries, maybe Italy for sure here, have this advantage of having still a homogeneous country, and the family value, the family as a value that helps people to stick together. Now, are people angry here? Oh, they're pissed off. They're really angry. They want Greece to quit the EU. They want Greece to stop paying the debt. So they have instinctively understood what needs to be done, which is to leave a system that is bad for them, to leave a system that is keeping them and putting them even more into slavery every day. So they have understood what needs to be done. And that is why they trust new parties, new political parties. Like recently, we are in April 2015, recently they elected a party called Syriza, which is a sort of left-wing party, which has some good ideas. Some others are usually socialist, stupid stuff. But some ideas are good, and they want to face the European Union. But very quickly, I think they are put into pressure and capitulate in front of the powers of the money. So people might be extremely upset if they don't get what they want. The next thing they will elect another party. So what you see is the establishment, the political establishment, is disappearing, because no one wants to vote for people who have track records of failure, which, by the way, is a normal thing you would do. It's not like in France where people keep electing and voting for people who have 40 years of failure. So this at least they have a little bit more political conscience here. And certainly what's going to happen is that you will have political parties which are more and more extreme, because otherwise no one gets elected. And eventually you can hope that through these radical parties you will have some that will follow the people and put back some sort of first of all, real democracy, but also get away from this debt and get their finances in order. And maybe, yes, and people will accept that. They will be more poor, they will have some difficult economic consequences for a short while, but at least they can put the country back with their own currency, their own sovereignty. But again, I don't think this is likely, because the army, for example, is under NATO and therefore under control of the United States, and the United States will never want to have Greece to be independent. Why? Well, for example, right now there's oil in the Aegean Sea, and guess who got the exclusive rights to this oil? American corporations. Come on, that's the real name of the game, is getting energy and resources, and therefore high profits. So the political situation and the economic situation, of course, are linked, and I think that the economic collapse is going to continue, and it's not going to recover. And I'm really sad, because I really like this place. However, I encourage you to think for yourself, to look at the information online or through Greek contacts and try to find what is really happening. And think then, what could happen in your country? And as you know, I write books, and in English you can find Survive the Economic Collapse. And I think that what I describe in my book as a solution to this kind of problems that Greece is having and is going to, I think, get worse in the future. And of course, you can apply these solutions to your home, to your family, and perhaps to your country. So think for yourself, and if you think that my books can bring you some good ideas and some good advice, maybe read it. Anyways, I hope Greece can become an example of success, not success in terms of economic growth, but certainly success in independence, in sovereignty, in finding moral and cultural roots that can help them grow, because otherwise it's going to be really difficult. So from Athens, I fare you well, and I'll see you next time. Take care.